Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at Railbookers this evening for our online presentation. This week, looking at our top 5 holidays in Scotland. So, thanks very much for taking the time to join me. Hope you have a cup of tea or coffee, perhaps for the next half an hour or so, as we take a look at our top recommendations for north of the border. My name is Anna Davis. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager here at Railbookers for the UK team, and I'll be your host for, as I say, about the next half an hour or so. We're going to have a bit of a general introduction about Railbookers before we delve into those Scottish trips. If you have any questions at any point, you should hopefully be able to see a questions box on your screen. Please feel free to type in any questions that you have there. They come directly to me. Only I can see them. If you have any questions as we go through, please do pop them in there and we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. So without further ado, let's make a start. Start with some good news, and that is that currently we have some savings available on our Scottish trip, savings of up to £300 per couple, £150 per person. So if you're a solo traveller, equally applicable, £150 saving for you. These are running across all of our Scottish trips, and this will apply to all of the Scottish holidays that we're going to talk about today. And that's for departures not only later this year, but also into 2022 as well. So if you are considering getting something in the diary to look forward to for when we can travel again, then now's a great time to save on those Scottish trips. Now, I know a number of you regularly attend these presentations, but I hope you won't mind me just taking a few minutes right at the start for those that may be new to Railbookers, just to talk a little bit about what we do, how we can help, and the sorts of holidays that we put together. Just a few points that I wanted to raise from this slide. Firstly, we have been creating these independent, tailor-made rail holidays for about 17 years now. So we do have a lot of expertise within our team. I'm very happy to make recommendations, make suggestions for your trip. Our holidays are independent, they're not escorted, you're not part of a group, you don't have a tour leader with you, and that gives you the flexibility to explore those destinations on your own, but also to put together the itinerary that you want. And as we go through the presentation today, as we share our Scottish trips, or as you look through our website, please do bear that in mind, that nothing about our itinerary is fixed. It's not set in stone in any way. It can go on any day that the train runs. It can last for any duration. If you want to add in extra days, extra destinations, then that's all entirely possible. So lots of flexibility there. To book up to 2 years in advance, as I say, so we are making bookings through to February 2023 at the moment, and that's across a wide range of trips, really. So whether you're looking for a luxury rail experience, if you're looking to perhaps extend an existing cruise holiday by traveling by land for a few days after, perhaps into the Swiss mountains, if you are looking to do a coast-to-coast adventure or join the dots of a few multi-cities, lots of different holidays, lots of different options to consider. Also, just wanted to underline our peace of mind policy, our maximum flexibility that we currently have in place. This we launched last March in response to COVID, and it has been extended to cover all new and existing bookings made up to the 31st of March this year, regardless of travel date. And that gives you the option to change, postpone, or cancel your holiday up to 5 days prior to departure and move it to any date within the following 24 months, to any destination. It doesn't have to be changed to a like-for-like holiday. It can be changed to something else entirely, but it has been giving peace of mind to our customers over the last year. And if you have any questions on that, please do give us a call on 0203 780 2222, and we'd be very happy to answer your questions. Now, as I mentioned, our holidays are not escorted. You don't travel as part of a group, but that doesn't mean that you are without support when you travel. Because Railbookers is a global team, we have offices in the USA, in Canada, in Sydney, and in London. Wherever you're traveling, there will always be somebody awake within the Railbookers team should you require our assistance whilst you're away. And so on your travel documentation that you get, typically 10 to 14 days before travel, you do have an out of hours number on there, so should you need to reach us, you can do so from one of our team around the world. And also, just lastly, before we move into Scotland, just wanted to mention the rail partners that we have. As I say, we've been putting together these holidays for about 17 years now. We work with the major rail companies around the world to source their timetables, their fares, well in advance of the public opening. If you've ever tried to piece together a rail trip yourself, you'll know there are lots of different systems, lots of different languages, pretty fraught with complexity, and we take all of that complexity away by not only booking the rail tickets, but also the other parts of the holiday. Very much a one-stop shop with the hotel accommodation, sightseeing, excursions, transfers, ferries in some cases as well, flights as well if you're looking at further afield. So very much a one-stop shop for the whole package. So without further ado, let's start to talk about Scotland and some really lovely trips coming up here this afternoon from our top 5. As I say, bear in mind as we go through all of the itineraries that nothing here is fixed or set in stone. You can make any number of adjustments, and we'll talk a bit about that as we go through the various itineraries. I wanted to start with one of our most popular over the last 6 to 9 months. That's our Grand Inverness and the Highlands via the Caledonian Sleeper. So this is a 6-day itinerary starting from London on an overnight journey on the Caledonian Sleeper, travelling up from London to Inverness. You have 4 days based, 4 nights, sorry, based in Inverness, very much the gateway to the Scottish Highlands. And whilst you're based in Inverness, you do have 2 full sightseeing days out. The first is to Eilean Donan Castle and the Isle of Skye. And then a second full day trip is out to Loch Ness and Glen Urquhart Castle, nestled on the banks of Loch Ness there as well. You'll also have some time in Inverness, and we do include a hop-on, hop-off city pass there for you to explore. Lots of great things to do in Inverness itself, actually. It's got its own, it has a castle, it's got a museum, it's got beautifully riverside location. It's a lovely place to spend a few days too. Then it's back on the rails for your return trip on a day service to Edinburgh to then connect to London. Or, as I'll also mention, we can book to any UK rail station. So if you would prefer, if you live in Devon and you want to catch the train from Devon to London to catch the Caledonian Sleeper, to then travel up to do the holiday and then come back via Edinburgh straight to Devon to your local station, that's absolutely possible. You don't have to necessarily go via London. But equally, also through all of these trips, if you'd prefer to travel on a day service up to Inverness from your local station, then we can do that as well. Although the Caledonian Sleeper is a great experience, I must say. So let's have a look at the holiday itself and some of your experiences. So we'll start with the Caledonian Sleeper. 2 lines on the Caledonian Sleeper, the Highland and the Lowland, and they run every day except Saturday. So you've got a number of different accommodation types on board the Caledonian. First thing to point out is that in 2019, all of the trains were replaced with brand new train sets. So they are brand new trains. It's a very high level inside, and you have 3 classes of accommodation. As I say, you have the classic, the club, and the double. Our holidays are packaged with the club, which is the image that you see there on the right hand side with the 2 berths there, but you also have ensuite facilities for your overnight journey. The classic doesn't come with ensuite facilities, and both have access to the Caledonian Lounge, where you can have food and drink throughout the journey, all made fresh to order by the chefs on board. Very typical Scottish produce, very often salmon on the menu, fully stocked bar with a number of malts for the journey north. At the moment, of course, that's not possible, but when services resume and when travel resumes again, that will again reopen. You do also have the option, though, to eat in your compartment as well, in your carriage. So if you prefer to eat in your private cabin, that can also be accommodated. Now, the other option is the Caledonian Double. And if you are traveling for a special occasion, perhaps making up for last year, celebrating a special occasion, then the Caledonian Double is one to consider. As some of you may have heard on previous presentations with us, there are very few trains now that include a full-size double bed as an overnight accommodation on board. The Caledonian Double is one, VRL Prestige Class is another, but there aren't very many left. There are 2 Caledonian Double cabins per departure on the Caledonian Sleeper. So availability doesn't last long, but definitely worth considering. You have a full-size double bed, ensuite facilities, and breakfast and meals the night before included in the cost here. So that's certainly one to consider. Now, in terms of your experience on the holiday, so you've arrived at Inverness and you, as I say, you have 2-day trips included. The first we'll look at here is Loch Ness and Glen Urquhart. So the castle of Glen Urquhart, situated on this beautiful headland overlooking Loch Ness. It's one of the largest in Scotland in area, Glen Urquhart Castle. The ruins date from the 13th century to the 16th century, and like many things we'll talk about today, have had quite a checkered past, and have this particular castle played a significant role in the wars of Scottish independence in the 14th century. The loch itself, of course, famed for many things, but it's the largest body of water in Great Glen, running from Inverness in the north to Fort William in the south. And you do have time to visit the visitor centre on the edge of Loch Ness and have some time to explore the local area there as well as part of this day tour. Now, the other day tour included in this package is the Isle of Skye and Eilean and Donan Castle. Eilean and Donan, probably one of the most photographed of all the Scottish landscapes, I guess. Absolutely spectacular. And it's situated at a particular point where 3 sea lochs meet. First inhabited around the 6th century, but became fortified in the 13th century. And like many castles in the area, has been built and rebuilt many times with the feudal history that Scotland has. So it's a really interesting place to explore, plenty of time to explore on that day trip before you then move over to Skye. So you'll cross the bridge and travel to the Isle of Skye after that castle visit. You will stop first of all at the Red Cuillin Mountains, and then it's on to Portree, the coastal village that you see on the screen here. Some time here to explore at your leisure, enjoy some lunch, and then afterwards stroll around the Trotternish Peninsula there before moving on to see Castle Moyle as you approach the Skye Bridge again on the way back to Inverness. So lots to do, lots to see, and to breathe in all of that fresh air and open spaces of the beautiful Isle of Skye. So next holiday I wanted to share this afternoon is our Edinburgh and the Highlands trip. This is a 4-day trip with a starting price of £649. So this has you based in Edinburgh this time. You will take the Caledonian Sleeper or a day service if you prefer, but take the Caledonian Sleeper overnight to Edinburgh, and then you have 3 days in Edinburgh. Plenty of time to enjoy a walking tour there, the skip the line entrance to the castle, so you go straight to the front of the queue, and then there's also a great full day trip of Loch Ness, Glencoe and the Highlands included in here. So you're taking Glencoe, Fort William, Loch Ness and travel back through the Cairngorms National Park back to Edinburgh. Now, one of the recommendations we have for Edinburgh, obviously an incredibly well-known city in terms of what to see, what to visit, but Dean Village is a particular highlight, just 5 minutes or so from Princes Street, but a real oasis in the middle of the very busy city, and really clear to see the remnants of its industrial past, really. It's part of the village where mills were housed. You can see millstones, carved stone plaques, and a lot of those original buildings still intact. Follow the walkway along the Water of Leith and you'll get to Dean Bridge, which was designed by Thomas Telford himself, and also the classic temple of St Bernard's Well, a must-see there. So a really lovely place to spend a few hours in a slightly calmer area of the city, if you like, with a real rich heritage and slightly different history as well. And then on the Loch Ness, Glencoe and Highlands day trip, well, the scenery doesn't come much more spectacular than Glencoe, and you'll experience some of the most breathtaking scenery the UK has to offer really on this day trip. So whether that's the shimmering lochs, the rugged mountains, forest-filled glens, you'll see it all. So stops include Callander on the edge of Loch Lomond, Glencoe before passing through the Great Glen en route to Fort Augustus, on the banks of Loch Ness. You do have the option there also to take a boat cruise on the loch itself, and then you'll travel back through the Cairngorms National Park and past Blair Castle before arriving back in Edinburgh. Blair Castle, like many of the castles in the area, has had a pretty diverse history with some turbulent and peaceful times, and it's been the home of the Athol family for over 7 centuries, and a beautiful building to pass on the way back to Edinburgh at the end of your day trip. The third Scottish holiday for our time together today is Edinburgh, Oban and the West Highland Line. So this starting to take in some of the west coast features of Scotland up to Oban and Mallaig this time. So it's an 8-day itinerary with a starting price of £1,049. Let me talk you through the itinerary. Again, you'll start with travelling on board the Caledonian Sleeper from London, this time all the way through to Fort William. And you're based in Fort William for 2 nights stay, during which a real rail highlight takes place, and that's your day trip on the West Highland Line on the Jacobite steam train between Fort William and Mallaig, a return trip back to Fort William for your second night's stay. And we'll talk about the Jacobite on the next slide. You'll then come down to Oban for a 2-night stay there, a lovely tranquil, relaxing spot for a couple of nights before then moving down to Edinburgh to combine the holiday with a bit of a city stay, a 2-night stay in Edinburgh with that walking tour and castle entrance as was available on the previous holiday, and then back to London or your local UK station, wherever you'd like to journey back to. So the Jacobite itself, here crossing over the Glenfinnan Viaduct, often now referred to as the Harry Potter train, because it was the train used as the Hogwarts Express in the numerous Harry Potter films. But it's a real treat of a rail journey. It's often described as one of the greatest rail journeys in the world. It's only 84 miles as a round trip. But it holds its own in terms of what you're going to see, and the list of extremes that you'll pass is really quite impressive. So it starts near the highest mountain in Britain, that's Ben Nevis, of course. It visits Britain's most westerly mainland railway station at Arisaig. It passes close by the deepest freshwater loch in Britain, Loch Morar, the shortest river in Britain, which is River Morar, and finally arrives next to the deepest seawater loch in Europe, Loch Nevis. So a huge amount of varying scenery, all from the comfort of your beautiful seat on board this real heritage treat. There's a reason that the Jacobite is on a lot of people's bucket lists, and it's an absolutely beautiful way to spend a day. If again you're wanting to treat yourselves, why not upgrade to first class and travel in one of these really beautiful vintage carriages, and you can also add a number of extras to this for a small extra cost, like an afternoon tea on board. There's whiskey tastings, there's chocolate tastings that can be added as well, so lots of extras if you wish. So then after your second night in Fort William, it's down to Oban. As I say, a lovely tranquil coastal spot to spend a couple of nights and have some of that wide open space on the seaside. A real must is to visit McCaig's Tower for the best vantage point over the area. And you've also got the ruins of Donnelly Castle to visit as well. And you might also consider taking a walk to Gallinack to catch the ferry across to the island of Kerrera, where you have plenty of time to explore there. It's got a particularly beautiful castle with a tea garden, I'm told, so that's one to recommend. But equally, Oban itself, full of lovely places to eat, great seafood, of course, and a lovely spot for a couple of nights before you then move to Edinburgh at the end of your stay. Now, the Grand Tour of Scotland combines really everywhere that we've talked about thus far, with an additional stop in Glasgow. So if you're looking for a slightly longer itinerary, wanting to combine a few more areas of Scotland in one trip, then this may be the one for you. It's a 10-day holiday with a starting price of £1,199. Starts, as ever, with a night on board the Caledonian Sleeper travelling north, and you will start in Inverness. So you travel to Inverness on that sleeper service. You'll be based in Inverness for 2 nights during which time you will do the Isle of Skye day tour that we talked about at the start of today. You will then travel down to Glasgow, then up to Fort William, and then finally Edinburgh. And during that time, you will also, from Fort William, do the Jacobite train on the West Highland Line, and you will also have a tour of Stirling Castle and Loch Lomond as well included in this trip. So again, a lot of sightseeing, a lot of experiences outside of the cities, so a real combination of beautiful landscapes and city stays as well. So Fort William, here the base for a few of our holidays for that Jacobite service from Fort William to Mallaig. It lies at the southern end of the Great Glen, and just a few minutes away from the town is Glen Nevis, one of Scotland's most picturesque highland glens, formed from the flank of Ben Nevis and two other mountains, and has the River Nevis flowing through it. A really lovely, lovely spot, especially if the sun was shining like that. And then Mallaig, which is at the end of the Jacobite line. You have some time here before the return journey. And I learned today that the name Mallaig is derived from Old Norse Melvik, which means sand dune bay, which obviously describes it perfectly. So a lovely tranquil place to spend a few hours before your return journey back to Fort William. Now, if you are looking to visit Scotland in luxury with some style, then the Belmond Royal Scotsman could be one to consider as well. We have a number of Royal Scotsman itineraries, but the one I wanted to share today is our Classic Splendours itinerary. It's a 9-day trip with a starting price of £7,749 per person. So you will travel up to Edinburgh and you have a 2-night stay in Edinburgh to start the holiday with, before then on day 4 catching the Royal Scotsman, and you stay on board the Royal Scotsman for 4 nights. So you stay on board in a beautiful accommodation, which we'll look at in a moment. So I'll talk you through the itinerary once you're on board. So you'll board and travel north, crossing the Forth Railway Bridge, and you'll enjoy afternoon tea and lunch to start with. You certainly don't go hungry on this holiday, I will warn you now. You pass through Arbroath, Montrose, and into Aberdeenshire before arriving in Keith, and that's where you'll spend the first evening on board the train with some entertainment on board and an informal dinner served in the observation car on the first night. Then the following day, you'll move, departing Keith, and travel towards Inverness. And you'll approach the Kyle of Loch Alsh, the most scenic route, the most scenic part of this route, and you'll get off the train at the beautiful Plockton, and there you can choose to either watch some seals, do a seal watching boat excursion, or indeed visit Eilean Castle if you prefer. Then it's back to the train for a formal dinner, this time followed by coffee or cocktails in the observation car. The third day on board, the Royal Scotsman takes you down to the Glenord distillery. Wouldn't be a trip without a distillery visit in there. And then you'll continue down to Carbridge, where you'll get to explore Ballindalloch Castle on Speyside. And you'll stay overnight at Boat of Garton on the private Strathspey Railway. And then finally, as you continue back down towards Edinburgh on the final day, it's a visit to the Rothiemurchus estate in the Cairngorms National Park, somewhere I was fortunate enough to visit last August for a few weeks. And you'll have lunch on board as the train travels south. You'll also have the opportunity to disembark and visit Glamis Castle on this one as well, spending the night on the train in Dundee before arriving back in Edinburgh the following morning. So a packed itinerary, lots of great experiences on board, but also some fabulous sightseeing and excursions included as standard. Now, the Royal Scotsman experience is a very special one with a very warm welcome from the staff, and really nothing too much trouble for them throughout your time on board, with the best hosting and hospitality you can imagine whilst travelling through the most magnificent scenery. On board, just a few images of what your experience would be like. You have the carriage on the bottom right, which is the observation car there. A great place to spend time for an afternoon tea, for a pre-dinner drink, for a nightcap perhaps after dinner. It's also where a lot of the onboard entertainment takes place, whether that's from local poets, local authors, local wildlife experts, whiskey tasting, all sorts to entertain you whilst you're on board of an evening. But as I say, you certainly won't go hungry, and the cuisine on board is really everything you would expect from a Belmont train, sister train of the Orient Express, and really incredible standard of catering given the small confines of the kitchen that the private chefs work in, but really second to none. So the dining cars beautifully panelled with mahogany, and a selection of really some of the best Scottish produce always on offer. Game, seafood, wild salmon always features, as do things like classic kedgeree, Scottish mussels, pigeon, halibut, you name it. There are some of the most delicious things on the menu. But of course, special dietary requirements can always be catered for as well, and that's no issue for them either. And in terms of where you'll sleep, the cabin accommodation here, one thing you'll notice is it's all on the same level on board the Royal Scotsman. So there are no upper berths like you would find in some of the cabins on board the Orient Express, for example. So all on the same level. These are the various twin cabins laid out for the day. And then whilst you're enjoying your delicious dinners, these will be converted into beds for your evening sleep. But there are 4 different types of cabins available on board: a twin, a double, a single, or an interconnecting. So a beautiful private space with your own picture window there to enjoy the views as you roll through the Highlands. So, a whistle-stop tour there of our 5 favourite Scottish trips at the moment. I hope you found that interesting. Hope it's given you a few ideas of where you may escape to when we are able to travel again. If you'd like any more information on any of those holidays, a number of options available. By all means, do give us a call. We are open, as I say, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5:30. You can also have a look on our website, of course, at railbookers.co.uk. The site itself isn't bookable. It's really an information site because, as I say, all of our holidays are tailor-made. We can customize them, and we really do prefer to speak to you, the customer, so we can really understand what's important to you to put the right holiday together just for you. But lots of information on there. You'll find all the holidays that we've talked about today with the route map and the pricing all the way through to 2023 and the day-by-day itinerary as well. And at this point, I will hand it over to yourselves and see whether we have any questions. Not too late to ask any questions. If there's anything you'd like me to recap or cover, then by all means do. I can see a few questions have come in. So I see a question about deposits. So yeah, let me take that. So typically, as I say, our holidays can be booked up to 2 years in advance. If you're booking more than 3 months ahead, then we would take a deposit typically of £250 per person. And then at 90 days before you travel, we will take the full balance, and then your travel itinerary with all the information you need is sent out somewhere between 10 and 14 days before. Also, a few questions coming in about hotel accommodation. So let me take that for you, asking whether you can choose your own accommodation or whether we have to book what Railbookers recommend. Great question. So the answer really to that is both. We have, of course, recommended hotel partners that we work with that we will suggest for certain locations, but we also can accommodate any specific request 99% of the time. So if there's a particular hotel that you'd really like to stay in, or that's been recommended to you, or that perhaps you've stayed at before, then we can certainly accommodate that. And we have a range really of 3, 4 and 5-star hotels available to suggest. And the other thing to mention in terms of accommodation is that you can vary those across the holiday. So if, for example, you're traveling for your 40th, 50th, 60th birthday, and you'd like to spend the evening of your birthday in a 5-star hotel, but the rest of the holiday will be in a 3-star, then that's absolutely fine. I can also see a question that's come in about how soon will holidays be good to go, in your opinion? That's a great question, and if I knew the answer to that, I would be a very famous person, I guess, right now. I mean, We're waiting, as always, as ever, as most people are, for the next round of updates on the 22nd of February, and we will see what that brings. What I can say is that our flexible booking policy and our peace of mind guarantee means that we can change holidays once they're booked very, very easily. So we are rebooking people for next year, for later this year, from last year, very, very seamlessly without any issues. So if there is somewhere that you're particularly keen to visit, my recommendation would be to get something on the books, in the calendar, to avoid disappointment, because I think once things do open up, then everybody, or a lot of people, are going to want to get away, and nobody wants to be disappointed 2 years in a row. But our guest relations team are excellent at keeping you up to date with the very latest. We have a dedicated team there outside of our reservations team that handle all booking inquiries after deposit, and can handle any questions and give you the most up-to-date advice on particular rail routes, on particular country restrictions, all of that stuff. So if there's anywhere that you have in mind and that you'd like to explore with us a little bit more, perhaps get an initial quote together, then by all means do give us a call. I can also see a question asking if you can get a full refund if you cancel your holiday. The short answer to that is yes. We do have some restrictions based on some of our suppliers around low-cost flights, for example, which may have may complicate things slightly. But again, our guest relations team are on hand to give you the full breakdown of those holiday costs, and what would be refunded. And as I say, we can move things to 24 months, up to 24 months ahead, to a future date for a future holiday equally. And a lot of people are choosing to do that because they are holidays that they have had planned and in mind for a long time. But again, if you'd like any more information on that, if you'd like to speak to one of the guest relations team, then by all means do give us a call. So I hope that has covered most people's questions. So at this point, really all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for joining me. It's been great to have your company this evening, this afternoon. Hope it's given you some ideas of where to escape to when we can go away. And by all means, do give us a call if you'd like any more information. Equally, if you prefer to book with your local travel agent, then we work with local travel agents up and down the land. So if you would like any information from them, then by all means ask them to get in touch, and we will gladly give them the information you're looking for. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, stay warm, most of all at the moment, and I hope to see you again soon on one of our online presentations again. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.